you hear it?
Yes.
Good afternoon, good morning, good day to everyone. Udama Akiyur. Welcome to the World Media Coalition Jazz Lovers Television Network launch of our new production on Monday, this day, February, what's today's date? The 12th? 14th. Oh, okay. So should I say Happy Valentine's Day to everybody? Or should I say Het Haru? Because Valentine's Day is named after Het Haru, who was one of the Kemetic deities. Het Haru is also called Venus, and the month of February is named after the month of the planet Venus and Het Haru. So Het Haru, Haru, which means Het Haru Day. So I'm Makakuvu Ali El Bey, and I want to welcome our illustrious new talk show host, Qarlah Prince, and I'm going to turn the mic over to her in a few moments. But let me give everyone a quick background on the World Media Coalition Jazz Lovers Television Network. And I want to thank our technical producer coming out of Lugansk Republic in Eastern Europe, which is next to Ukraine, Zulu King Fritzen, who was with the Universal Zulu Nation as well. So the World Media Coalition Jazz Lovers Television Network is a limited liability corporation. It's one LLC, but it's two broadcast platforms. Our broadcast philosophy is based upon news, business, arts, culture, and entertainment last. And I'm not talking about the type of entertainment on BET or VH1 or Oprah Winfrey. I'm talking about the type of entertainment that relates to the development of the consciousness of our people. That entertainment is spiritually and motivationally uplifting. based upon culture. So our platform is news, business, arts, culture, and entertainment. The news and business is primarily handled by the World Media Coalition, and the Jazz Lovers Television Network handles arts, culture, and entertainment. The business model is a subscription-based stakeholder marketing business model, meaning that as a subscriber, once we launch the Jazz Lovers Television Network, the monthly subscription will be one price, and those who are subscribers will be able to recruit other subscribers, and the stakeholder will be their payout of a few dollars out of the subscription rate every month. The subscription rate for people who come in when we launch the Jazz Lovers Television Network will be a subscription rate for life. It will never go up. So again, that's just a brief on what our philosophy is and what our business model. And this is our new launch of the inaugural production of Healing from Our Trauma, The Strength of a Woman. And that title, the program production title, is one that reflects not just the ritualistic trauma that we have experienced daily, but the trauma that we have also experienced over the last 500 years, being victimized and incarcerated on this land in enslavement. So at this point, I'd like to welcome our new host, Dr. Qarlah Prince.
I'm Dr. Qarlah Prince, and very, very pleased to be here with you all today. I'm excited about the topic of today's show, which is healing from our trauma. I just want to lay the groundwork before our guests. There are three types of trauma. We know that there's acute trauma, there's chronic trauma, and then there's complex. And I'm sure we're going to touch on all of those levels today. So without further ado, who would we be having today, brother, as our first guest?
Money, to purchase things for the kids, and then to see her waste some of the things that you packed for her.
And can I ask everybody to mute themselves if you're not speaking, please? Thank you.
This is the brother from New York, Nana. And
Nana Asare.
Nana Asare.
Yes.
He will bring us information on the project he's working with people in the Bronx who were victimized in the tragedy of the fire. And Nana Asare, go ahead and speak.
Good afternoon, good morning, Hotep family, assalamu alaikum, and all the great greetings. Yes, I'm Nova Felder, aka Nana Asare Asamani the First. I am the co-director of education for BABA Inc. BABA stands for Bridging African and Black Americans. It's an organization that my brother Abdullah Sise, a brother born in Guinea, raised in the Bronx, started roughly 2 years ago. And I'm one of the founding members, and we've just been organizing our brothers and sisters across the continent, the Caribbean, United States, and Europe, to bring us closer together as a family, because we are one family, right?
Yes.
So we are one family. So our mission had always been, from an educational standpoint, to intellectually bridge the gap and answer the differences between our various ethnic groups and communities, right? I live in New York City. New York City, for those of you that have never been here or just came to New York as tourists, New York is a very, how would I want to say, diverse place. But I'm not talking about multiracial diversity at this point. I'm talking about very diverse in terms of Black, African, Aboriginal diversity, right? We have Black people from all over the world, right, that live here. I've met Black people from East Asia, from Papua New Guinea, from Southern India, from all over the world, the Caribbean, of course, Europe, and so on and so forth. So that's where bridging the idea came from, to bring those groups together. But when this tragedy happened in the Bronx, we were kind of forced to become more hands-on and be on the ground to help our brothers and sisters that not only the families that had the physical loss of their loved ones, but there are hundreds of individuals that lived in that building. That building at 333 181st Street has 120 units. And some of these units are 3-bedroom, 4 bedrooms, and as I understand, 5-bedroom units. So we have multi-generations live in that building. If you look at the names of the people that passed, the 17, they range from 2 years old to 50 plus years old. Wow. So yeah, so we it just happened so that the DOE and one of the school boards donated $50,000 worth of items, and we were responsible for the items. And it was an organization we were delivering them to did not have the space to keep them. So we made the decision to rent 2 huge storage spaces in the Bronx and take it upon ourselves to distribute these toiletries, these cleaning products, brand new clothing, so on and so forth, directly to the families. And to date, I've been the main person, like an interim manager of operations, dealing with the day-to-day needs of that community as other organizations are calling us, and we've been distributing those goods to those organizations. Sometimes individual families call us and we'll deliver directly to them, or they'll come to us. And we want to say thank you to the many volunteers that really, on a moment's notice, have come to the storage facility to help us organize the goods, have helped us distribute the goods, and so on and so forth. And to other volunteers and donors that have donated money, right, to our cause to help us continue to do this work. So this was not necessarily our mission when we started Baba, but because of the need of the people, we're nimble and we've been able to adjust to it, and we've been doing a pretty good job over the past month. Last week was the 1 month anniversary of the fire, which occurred on January 9th in the evening. So last week we had 2 big events. One was on Sunday prior to February 9th. And that event was in conjunction with Grace Inc., another beautiful organization formed by a sister from the Bronx, from Harlem, living in the Bronx, dealing with the issues of our community. She helped us. We had Community Board 5 right there in the Bronx. That's the community board of that building resides in. And we also were in conjunction with It's From the Soul. It's an organization founded by a brother named Andrew McDonald. He donated, his org does basically really classic hip hop footwear, sneakers to impoverished, in need, homeless, houseless communities across, not just in New York or the tri-state, but the world. So he donated over 250 pairs of shoes that we gave out on that Sunday to the various families. De facto, every family member that was affected by this tragedy got a pair of shoes. They came in for toiletries. We had to gift bags for them. So this is part of the work that another organization, GYO, and others on the ground have been handling the political, the social, and economic needs. Because can you imagine you lose your housing, right? Whether that's private housing, whether that's public housing, or combination of thereof, and you can't cook for yourself every day. Most of these families are in hotels at the moment. GYO, which stands for the Gambian Youth Organization. They have partnered with Airbnb to get some of the families a more stable, permanent, homed, home situation so that they can actually take care of themselves as opposed to relying on cooked food from outside of their domain, right, in their homes. Many of these families are Muslim. So, of course, there's a need for halal and these things. So we are trying to work with all the families to cover their needs. But one thing I just want to say, and I'll get back to on the anniversary, what we did was that this tragedy, right, is a tragedy not of just the failure of one singular landlord. It's the failure of New York City. It's the failure of New York State, the United States of America, because it really shows it really has shown the racism, right? Intergenerational and endemic racism and classism that exists in this country today. Many people poured their hearts, their wallets out and donated to the Red Cross, donated to GYO, have donated to New York City's, their fund as well. And that is great. But the bigger thing that we have to address is this endemic sense of racism, right? If we are to be citizens and we are participating and taxes are being collected, at the very least, we should be treated as equals. And one thing that the media, I see the pictures are up here of the building, right? And you're seeing some of our Muslim brothers here. I think this is at ICC, Islamic Community Center, where the funerals were. But one thing that is not being shown is that not just this multi-generational, right? All ages and all stages of life, people are living in that building, but it's not just the continental immigrant African community living in that building, right? We have Afro-Latinos living in the building. We have the so-called African-Americans living in that building. And, and those are the, basically everybody is an indigenous person, is Aboriginal person that is living in 333 181st Street, affectionately known as Torre Towers, named that for Abdullah Torre, that was one of the first Gambian immigrants to live in the building back from the 1970s that was there. But so these are endemic issues that we have to address as a community. Another great thing that came out of all of this that I'm seeing is that we are doing for ourselves, and we have to continue to do for ourselves, because to be honest, and others that are on the ground and organizing can attest to this. If it wasn't for organizations such as GYO, the Community Board, Baba Inc., and others that are on the ground, many of the services that are happening for the families, that are maintaining and sustaining them through this very difficult time of putting themselves back together, right? They are Black Aboriginal people doing it on the ground, right? I'm not saying there aren't other people, right, and other orgs that are not there, but it is we are at center stage and the organizing principle to push our people's agenda forward, right? Honestly, the beginning of this month, if it wasn't for orgs like GYO, they would have already pushed these families that have been devastated by this fire already into the New York City homeless shelter system, which is not a very efficient, clean, or savory system that anybody wants to enter into, right? So it wasn't, yes, exactly. If it wasn't for their efforts and other orgs and attorneys' efforts in fighting for these families, they would already be in these New York City homeless shelters. And if any of you know, and just quick Google of it's not a very good system. So because of them, we've got it extended to March 7th. And we have that program working with Airbnb, partnering with Airbnb, looking for a more stable solution. And we're calling on the city, the state, and the federal government to find a situation that is more permanent for these families because the real honest thing is the trauma that these families have gone through, losing most of their possessions that they, some people have been living there for 50 years, gone. Seeing dead bodies and on every floor. There's 19 floors in that building. And when people were trying to escaping, on every floor, there were dead bodies. Yes. All the way up to the third floor, if you've read and been keeping up. So that's trauma, right? And that brings us to the point what we're speaking about today is healing from trauma, right? Nobody in the situation, we've met people that don't even realize that they're traumatized, but we know that they're traumatized, right? So these are questions.
Excuse me, Nana Asare, can I interject a point right quick?
Of course, King. Yes.
The family where the fire started, the husband was out of town. The fire started from a heater, a space heater, and every one of his family members perished. Wow. Every one of his family members perished, and he came home to that. So the trauma that he's experienced is multiplied tenfold. Yeah. I just want to share that so people can get a perspective on what you're speaking about.
17 lives, as I said, between 2 years old and 50 plus years old perished on that cold wintry evening. And Brother Makakuvu, just, every time, I think about it, when you said it, the emotions just hit me. I don't know if you guys could really see it, but it's really, even for us as organizers and community members, it's traumatizing, right? Mm-hmm. Because we're thinking about ourselves, we're thinking about those families, and but like I said, and other people have said it, we will not let our brothers and sisters die in vain. We will raise the issues of these systematic racisms that exist. If we're paying rents, if we're paying taxes, right, that building should be heated, right, to a standard to where you don't have to use a space heater.
That's right.
That building should have, it was built in 1972. Some people have talked like this building is 100 years old. I mean, the building, this is the 50th anniversary. My high school that I went to was built in the 60s, and it's a state-of-the-art building with sprinklers and, all of these, automatic closing doors has been upgraded. So there's no reason for that building and the owners of that building, the management of that building, not to have, adequate sprinklers, doors that close automatically. And, we're also pushing for, beyond just tenant education about fire safety, citywide. I mean, many of us haven't been in a fire drill since we've been in school. Some of us don't even have, smoke detectors that work in our own homes. So these are things that we're not even thinking about. Yeah. So one thing that was very damning, right, and we have to talk about it, is that, many city officials have, from that day, from the 9th of January, were blaming the tenants, right, for the fire because of having a space heater. If the building was adequately heated, there would be no need for a space heater, right? I understand how it is. I'm a homeowner. Gas is crazy expensive. Living in your private abode is one thing, and having a space heater, right? But living in a building where you have, thousands of people living there and having to use that is a whole different scenario. It was also talked about the door wasn't closed behind. When you're trying to save your life, I think the last thing you're thinking about is to close a door behind. So we're very disappointed in the initial reactions of city officials around this issue. We know, we don't believe, we know if this was a fire that happened in Midtown, downtown, for any number of reasons, that type of rhetoric would not have been used. We know if it was the Upper West Side and other locales, that this would not have even happened because there would have been no need for a space heater, right? Mm-hmm. That company that owns the building doesn't just own one building in the Bronx, it owns several. They have over 200 open violations. They own other buildings downtown where these things don't happen. So we know that this situation did not have to happen. Those 17 lives are victims of the racism. The surviving families are continued victims of racism and neglect. We did I'll go back. The day of the 1 month anniversary, which was February 9th, we did a program with the Party for Socialism and Liberation on 181st and the Grand Concourse. In that rally, we spoke to all of the New York City media, New York 1, CBS, ABC, Bronx 12. And one thing that we all reiterated was that this is a failure of the system. So it's definitely a loss for our community. It's a loss for New York City. It's a loss for the United States of America, but bigger, it's a loss for the Black melanated Aboriginal community of the United States of America. And we mourn those families, and we continue to give cover to the families that are still alive, and we're supporting them.
Yes. I wanted to ask a question. You mentioned several organizations lending help in various ways, which is amazing. And we do appreciate that. Has anyone addressed the mental issues, emotional issues that are going on as it relates to the trauma from 2 years old and up? What's being provided for them?
So I was on a call last week, Friday, and that was one of the issues that were brought up. We have almost like a point program where we're talking about demands from the city. And one of the demands is more mental health services. On Friday, also had a meeting with students at Columbia University, Black students that are in the social work program. And one of the services that they offered was to do a Umoja healing circle. So we're going to, over the next few weeks, we're going to definitely work with them at Baba to bring those healing circles to the community center and to various communities. Maybe we can do it at the hotels that they're at. Maybe we can have a centralized location and do it at least maybe once or twice a week for people that are open to, participating in that form of mental health. But also, we're also pushing for, what you would consider the traditional Western, maybe psychotherapeutic group therapy, also coming from the city, being provided maybe by a private agency funded by the city. Because to be honest, and I will definitely share these videos with you. We have one brother that we interviewed right before the rally we did last week to commemorate. We did a rally and we also did a vigil at the building on February 9th. And our media team, working closely with the PSL, which is the Party for Socialism and Liberation, interviewed the brother, beautiful brother, African-American, loved living in the building, and said he's going back, to our surprise, because many of the families and individuals said they weren't going to go back because of the trauma that they experienced. But what I realized in watching his video, his interview, which was about 4 or 5 minutes between two videos, I realized he didn't realize the impact, that this whole thing has had. He was thinking about, survival, which is understandable. He was thinking about he doesn't have to pay, the rent is included with heat, hot water, air conditioning, gas, electricity is all included in his bill. And that's what he was concerned with. I'm going to go back because this. So he talked about walking past dead bodies that were in the stairwell. One thing that if you've been keeping up with the story, you'll understand that there were on every single floor, there were dead bodies found in stairwells, right? So the trauma of just seeing, I don't think many of us on this call have actually seen, outside of being at a funeral, right, a dead body. There's so much trauma surrounding that. So much trauma just in that alone, outside of losing your worldly possessions, outside of not knowing how to recognize the trauma that as it's happening, the anxiety that could exist at the moment.
Losing your loved one. That itself. you know, and thinking maybe either they burned or smoke inhalation, whatever it is, just to process that alone. I mean, that's a bit much.
Yes. Makakuvu brought up the brother who wasn't home where the fire started on the third floor. He lost his entire family, children, wife. I mean, it's totally devastating. Outside of just losing your material possessions and IDs, and can you imagine? I mean, I just put myself. I think we all have, you know, with this empathy. I put myself in their shoes, and I said, if this was me, right, I would hope that, you know, people would come to my aid. So this is why we're so committed. You know, we have to. Our community has a way of. And we're dealing with intergenerational traumas, right? As a people here in North America. And sometimes we get so enthralled in our own individual lives that we forget to actually be an actualized human being, right? You have to go beyond just yourself, your nuclear family, your community. Understand that we are all in this together, and there has to be some given sacrifice for all of us to continue. We're in a continuum. And I think that is the enduring message, is that we can take care of ourselves. And I think our healing from the intergenerational trauma, the acute traumas, the combinations of traumas that we're all suffering, that we have to start with knowledge of who we are, right? That's historically, Brother Makakuvu said today is in the Gregorian calendar, it's Valentine's Day. And I love the point that he brought up. That's love, right? We celebrate love. And the goddess in the ancient Kemetic tradition that we celebrate in love is Het Heru, right? The house of Heru, the birth, the nurse mother of Heru, the hero, that when his mother was fighting as he was a child, she took the responsibility to breastfeed him, to nourish him and protect him, while his physical mother was in the universe protecting the community and the kingdom. So that love, right? We have to understand that love has to be in action, actualized, right? That love, how do we show that? It's with giving to another person. It's with sacrificing something of ourselves, whether that might be time, money, intellectual space, and so on and so forth. But that love for our community tends not to come because we're taught not to love ourselves.
Exactly.
We're taught to hate ourselves. Many of you are probably fans of Malcolm X. This is something that he talked about all the time. I hope many of you study people like Dr. Francis Cress Welsing and other Black psychologists and sociologists and therapists like Naeem Akbar that talk about these things. Professor James Smalls and Dr. Joy Leary talk about post-traumatic colonization syndrome and post-traumatic slavery syndrome. So, Doctor, we have a long way to go, but I think charity starts at home. I think that we have to start with knowledge of ourselves and give empathy and cover to our people to start healing, because it's very difficult for that community, which is multi-generational, multi-Black ethnic, as I said previously on the other call, where we have Afro-Latinos, African-Americans, continental Africans living in the community and working together as a family. But when things like this happen, we tend not even to realize the trauma because we've been dealing with so much trauma for so long.
Brother Doc,
yeah.
Let me contextualize a couple of things that you said. The program is healing from our trauma. And you heard Nana Asare say intergenerational trauma. The intergenerational trauma derives from a curse. Mm-hmm. Our people have been under a curse for over 500 years. And that curse has been compounded from the terrorism of the experience of the intergenerational ancestors. Let's start with being captured on our land, imprisoned in shackles, marched through our land to the shores, cast in dungeons that are still there today, Cape Coast, Castle. You have other dungeons where our people were incarcerated and then put on ships for 3 months, packed together, living in your own feces and excrement. No food, no water. Many died. Many are on the floor of the Atlantic Ocean, even today. Their bones. So, having been brought here, and those of us who were already here, reclassified, renamed, put into enslavement, beaten, raped, tortured, and killed, burned at the stakes, ripped apart. And then to come into modern times, so-called modern times, reclassified as a different kind of people and still subject to the hatred that initiated the curse in the first place. That is more than just post-traumatic stress syndrome or post-traumatic slave syndrome. Healing is in 4 dimensions: spiritual, psychological, emotional, and physical. I'm gonna say that again: spiritual, psychological, emotional, and physical. So when you talk about intergenerational trauma, intergenerational survival of terrorism, you're talking about a spirit that has been damaged, a spirit that needs healing, not just the consciousness, the psychological consciousness, not just the physical form, the emotional, but the spiritual healing that must take place among our people is first and foremost. So I just wanted to put that in context for the conversation to continue. Thank you both.
I appreciate what you just shared. I was going to add to that, healing you said reach our own first. We start healing our children. We got to start educating them because they're coming after us into a society and a time that is still not healed, that is still very broken. And, you know, it's that complex trauma. That's trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma. You know, the generational trauma it's more than just PTSD in whatever form you say it. You know what I mean? It's more than that. And so now here they are coming up next and wondering what's going on, or this is the way it's supposed to be, because that's all they know. So how do we start educating our children not to have to experience what we've experienced on a more healthy level? You know what I mean? Instead of all of the generational traumas that our parents didn't know, their parents didn't know. They're a sneeze from slavery. They didn't know. So they thought they were doing better because they were doing better. You know what I mean? But now here we are. So what do we do now?
I mean, personally, like I said, like with Baba Inc., I mean, I didn't even mention my own personal endeavors, right? I'm basically like a lifelong bibliophile, book dealer, educator in these, you know, the Black sciences, right? In who we are. And one thing, like I said, Baba Inc. Focus is bridging the gap in the way that we see that the only way we can bring our brothers and sisters back as a family is to elucidate on our similarities and our history and who we really are. And I think, I think it's an each one teach one situation. I think what we're doing today is going a long way with the production from the Legacy Builders Group, other social medias and physical interactions that we have. As I said earlier, charity, in my opinion, starts at home. And us, just like other groups of people that are a continuum, right? They take care of each other. So I think one of the things as I'm maturing, and you can see my grades are coming out more and more every day as I mature, right? That's a physical maturation, but also I have a spiritual and a mental maturation. And one thing I've really understood is that when you have to find your success in somebody else, right? My success by myself means nothing, right? Me living in a big house with several cars and or whatever, really for me doesn't matter, right? That's material wealth, right? But knowing that I've left a legacy like my forefather right before me who sacrificed much for his people to understand who they are. So we have to be very careful about eating the king's meat, because when we eat the king's meat, which means, the system's thinking, the system, the trapping, when we start, those things become more important to us than our neighbors, right? All of our spiritual books says, be good to your neighbor, right? When you be good to your neighbor, you're good to yourself, right? And that charity, we have to pass that. If it's an hour a week, can you imagine? We have millions of people, right? Just here in the Northern Hemisphere. If we each gave an hour a week, what could we accomplish, right? Baba participated in World Read Aloud Day, which was 2 weeks ago, early February or late January. And these children, it was a K through 6 school, pre-K through 5 or pre-K through 6. And it was me and Brother Abdullah, too tall, I would think handsome Black men that are professionals that have something to say. We came and we read to 4th graders, 5th graders. I even read to pre-K. And the look on these children's faces, they were so excited to see Black men. Because many of you know, school, whether it's DOE or another school, schools are very, female-dominated environments. So Black boys tend not to see themselves. If there are white teachers, if there are male teachers, they're usually Caucasian, white males there. So that was just an experience. I hadn't been in that school setting for so long. I hadn't, my daughter's basically being homeschooled or remote schooled for the last 2 years during this so-called pandemic. So I hadn't been, so just to see them, the pre-K, the little ones, 4 years old, so happy and right up front with me. And I'm reading to them about, I think the book was on Michelle Obama they wanted me to read. And then the 4th graders and the 5th graders who, of course, they're becoming preteens and challenging. So I'm just saying, we were there for an hour and a half, 2 hours. But one of the things that the reading coordinator, Miss Melissa, said, she was like, you don't know the impact you're going to have on these children. Something you just showing up as you are, right? Black men, strength, love, and you're concerned for them. You might have just changed their life coming here for an hour. So to me, we have to understand sacrifice. I think the trauma that the complex trauma that we're suffering through, which is well beyond post-traumatic, as you and Brother Makakuvu have so eloquently stated, it has to become, one thing we lost was the sense of responsibility that we have. And it's gotten worse. I remember growing up, are you my brother's keeper? Are you your brother's keeper? Yes, I am. But now, that's so not, it's more of individualistic. So I think that social media has contributed to that. I think capitalism has contributed to that type of thinking. I think there are many things, right? Our intergenerational complex traumas have contributed to that thinking, but we have to get back to the down home, grassroots reality of that we are responsible for each other. Yes. Are the building owners of 333 responsible? Yes, they are. Are the city responsible? Absolutely. Is the state government responsible? Absolutely. Is the federal government responsible? Absolutely. But one thing that is abundantly clear, if we weren't, as a Black people, as a brown, melanated, Black African people there in the Bronx helping our people, they would be getting less help. So that shows me through my maturation that we have to be here. We matter, right? And if we're going to run around the world saying Black Lives Matter, then we have to show the world how much we matter to ourselves. And how do we do that?
Sorry.
Right? Yes, King.
I want to share what you just said in a different structure.
Yes, go ahead, my brother. No problem. This is an open conversation.
And I want to address the question that Dr. Prince asked was, what do we do? And I want to address that this way. From the perspective of culture and economics. Culture and economics. Most people think that economics drives the culture. It doesn't, it's the reverse. Your culture drives your economics. And in that is a equal sign, which is identity.
Mm-hmm.
Identity determines what your cultural characteristics are. And because our people have been subject to us allowing other people to define our identity, because of that, our people have developed a pseudo-culture. And what do I mean? First and foremost, our identity was defined as slave.
Huh?
And then it became Negro. And then it became nigger. And then it became colored. And then it became Black. And then it became African American. Each one of those appellations as a title, as an identity, was given to us by our captors and accepted by us as our identity, thereby negating any ability to develop any cultural characteristics. And because the cultural characteristics are lacking, there aren't goods and services that identify us as a collective people with a collective consciousness, whereby we could exchange dollars and cents so that the dollar stays in our community 10, 15, 20 times before it leaves, because right now it only circulates not even once. Not even once. So, because of a lack of cultural identity and a collective consciousness that gives us the ability to harness, and here's the kicker, to harness our currency, our spiritual, our intellectual, the thought process, our physical currency is bankrupted. And what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? If our people can spend as much time on Sunday that they do in church, harnessing our currency to lift our young people, the wealth of the nation would be tenfold. Excuse me. So, healing from our trauma is also the ability to harness our currency. Because when we harness our currency, thereby it elicits the healing medicine. The healing medicine. See, people get sick and go to the doctor. They experience fear and go to church and pray to the Creator, pray to God. However, when the currency of healing takes place, we become our own spiritual doctors. And thereby embrace our culture to define ourselves as a people. Now, what does that mean? Cultural characteristics, speech, language, dress, music. Right now, the only music that we consider our culture is hip hop, and it's been co-opted by the industry, so our women and children are denigrated.
Say that again.
Denigrated. So I'd like Dr. Prince to talk about the experience that she's had with the women and children here in Atlanta, Georgia, who are homeless. And she and I and some others are beginning to work on developing a project so we can raise money to house these people. But Dr. Prince, in the context of what Nova Asare is saying, share with your experience with these homeless sisters down here, please.
Yes, absolutely. And my heart, first of all, is so motivated to help because I'm one of them. And you just don't know when we shouldn't count out or step over someone. I don't care and do anything to help. Don't know who they are. It's back to that identity. And dealing with a lot of these families who have lost their jobs, lost businesses, this pandemic, they've ended up on the street, literally under a bridge, literally sleeping in a tent with their children. And you have these children looking up at you saying, I'm hungry. And you have 2 nickels to rub together. And I know that for a fact because I was there. I was there. And it was an abusive, really complex trauma, generational and otherwise, that caused me to be in that state. And now, seeing them with this weather, you mentioned this is the coldest winter ever. These babies are dying. They're in, and I mean literally, they're ending up going to the hospital, emergencies, slight colds, everything is COVID now. You sprain your toe and they're going to call it COVID because of the dollars associated with it. But these are young children, and I'm talking from newborn. They are dying of pneumonia, just freezing to death. They go into the hospital and do not come out. And we don't hear a thing. This is something they don't talk about in the media. They don't talk about giving these vaccines to these babies and they're dying in 4 days and they're calling it something else. Oh, maybe they had a pre-existing whatever. Maybe it's your poison. The bottom line is they're not that concerned about these families, these children. And so I'm 100% on board with taking care of each other. That's that village, that you see a problem, you see a situation. If you can help it. Don't wait for the next person, and this is what's been driving us. And my foundation is getting to the root of what's going on. And that's why I say teaching and training and helping this next generation, which is what we've been doing with our grandchildren and even our adult children, some things along the line that they could get because I didn't get it. So now that I am aware, I'm teaching it. I'm helping it. And especially when it comes to currency, when it comes to finance, that is like one of my main issues that I speak about with my children and grandchildren, and having proper accounts and looking for interest and commodities and not just giving them every dime where they control every dime. And when it comes to the area of these buildings and things like that, We have to get together and start buying things, building things that we can control, that we know it's adequate. We know that it functions properly. We have to do that. They are at fault. And I agree with you 100%. So that situation, how do we begin to fix it? We fix it by controlling our dollars, channeling our dollars. Trusting is a huge issue amongst us because they've taught us not to trust one another. They've taught us the one that was in the big house, they were brainwashed to bring the others, tell on the others, snitch, the whole 9 yards. So we have a lack of trust. That's generational. That's that generational trauma where we can't embrace each other before we kind of have to check you out to make sure. But you let someone else of a different nationality come around and we're open arms. We believe, we go for fried ice cream. We go anything they say because of the skin tone. Why do we just automatically believe it? So here now they say there's a grant for this and there's funding for that. I don't see anything when we're in these streets helping these children, helping these families. So we're doing the best we can and reaching out to lend what we could, give what we could. And a lot we've done off of our own table, which it takes that. It takes it. That sacrifice is real, but I promise you it's worth it. When you've got to dig deep, saving lives.
Thank you.
The phone was protecting you.
And I say, think of them as your own because they are. Think of that family as if that was your family out there, just like what the brother said about the people who have lost their loved ones. What if that was you? What if it were you? How would you want everyone to respond? Or would you want people to say, oh, wow, bad, and change the channel? Because that's what happens. If people, our people, like this brother, does not get out there and do hands-on, it will go undone, unnoticed, everything. Because it would just be another story for us to talk about, another notch under our belt, and then just next, what's next in the news today? No one cares. No one cares about the mental state of these children. No one cares. So guess what? We have to. And that's where my heart is so connected because that was me. There was not counsel for me. It was all this book knowledge. No one wanted to teach my children. They wanted to separate me from my children. What real mother would allow that? You're not taking my kids to one shelter and putting me somewhere else, and I have no idea where my babies are. Have you lost your mind? So, this is what's going on in these streets right now. And that's what they consider help. Like, you should be thankful because, they expect us to take anything. Any kind of handout will do. And I always ask people, when you're donating, don't you dare donate anything that you wouldn't use yourself. Don't you dare. Don't you give someone clothing that you know you wouldn't wear yourself. These are human beings. This is our family. And you don't do that to people. Don't do anything that you wouldn't want done for yourself.
Dr. Prince.
Yes, sir.
Our other guest has just come in.
Okay.
Queen Mother Yaa Brayie. And based upon what you just shared with us, she has a continuing story that she just experienced with a homeless mother and two of her children. Yaa Brayie, are you there? Yaa Brayie. She fell off. She was there.
No, I think I'm here now.
Okay, please, Yaa Brayie, share with us the story of the homeless mother and her two children that you met about 3 weeks ago. Share that story with us, please.
Oh, yes. Greetings, family. This was on Monday, the 10th of January. I was coming from North Georgia, north of Atlanta, where I live near the airport in South Fulton County. Stopped in Kennesaw, which is about 40 miles north of where I live, to go to a Whole Foods. And there are no accidents or coincidences in spiritual people's lives. In the parking lot of the store, a youngish mother and her 14-year-old son were walking and said, "Ma'am, can you help us with our rent at the Days Inn across the street here?" And I did something I've never done in my life. My spirit spoke to me very, very, very more powerfully than it ever has, that said, "Fix it. Fix this for these people." So I put them in my car. I've never taken strangers asking for money into my car. So it would seem bizarre to the average person, but not to me, because I'm an empath and an intuitive. So I knew I was supposed to obey that voice. Put them in my car, drove them to the Days Inn, went in and paid their room rent for the evening, and met the young man, a Kennesaw State student, was the receptionist, and told him that I had come to help them out, et cetera, et cetera. Over the next 3 weeks, I sent money because they had nothing. I sent a text explaining a brief version of the story to my contacts, and was able to raise a few $100s to pay their room rent. The 14-year-old and the mother, and the 2-year-old was somewhere else at that particular time, but later on I could hear her in the background playing around. But paid their rent for a while, and got the general manager into it. Was a nice European woman who, a mother, so she understood that she wanted to help, and so she gave us a discount on the room, and I was able to keep them. The family here in Atlanta, was able to keep them housed for whatever time that was until February the 6th. Now, when I first met them, and then they're in the lobby of the Days Inn, the mother told me that she had gastritis and ulcers. She looked fine, but she was evidently very, very ill. So when I talked to her afterwards and tried to help her get connected to it, I met a board member of the Family Resource Center there, who said, "Call wherever and get some help for her and get her to the hospital." She managed to get to WellStar to have fluids pumped out and whatever. But the long story, maybe shortened a little bit. This was the 6th of February. That was about 4 weeks later. The general manager of that hotel called me to say that the young mother passed away. The mother died, and we're still now trying to find the son. Don't know where quite to look, but the Portia, her name is the general manager of the Days Inn, said she checked the newspapers and wherever else might know some family. Oh, the mother and children, she said they had just come to Atlanta area from Detroit. So we don't know how to find family, to find out what happened to this boy. You know, my only child is a male Black man child. So I'm very much concerned about this 14-year-old and where he is, and maybe try to get him in touch with the Covenant House here that takes homeless teenagers. I don't know. It's just knowing that it's family. Every child on the planet is my child.
That's
and
right.
wanting to know what's happened to him and his little sister. There was a man in the process somewhere. I think it was the taxi driver that brought her from the hospital that had to physically carry her upstairs to the second level of this Days into her room. But I'm not sure if that's who this man was or not. But some tenants in the neighboring room said they had heard a man's voice being abusive and cruel to her. So we do not know what happened to her, except that she passed away. And we don't know where the children are. So that's where we are now. And me being a queen mother, I'm always in everybody's business. So now and that's okay. That's my calling. I'm really looking for this boy and his little sister. So asking families to send, to call down help from the ancestors, if it is to be for us to intervene in their affairs, to guide me, us, the family here has gotten involved with the editing team I lead, and some other people in my contacts very concerned about our people. That's who we are, and that's what we do. It's what y'all are doing now. Where we all that's our nature. That's what we do. And so I'm honored to be participating in this and to share. Thank you.
Well, this is.
Thank you so.
Go ahead, Doctor. Did you want to speak?
I was saying. I like I said, that was me, and I had 4 children, and so I understand. Then for this baby who have lost his mother, you talking about trauma and
Yes.
being a child and dealing with now you're on your own. See, you know, and like what mother said, a real mother understands.
Yes.
Oh yeah, and just like, where's my baby? Where is my baby? And I feel the same way. These children, these are my babies.
Exactly. Yes. And this is not my story, your story. This is our story. It's our story. Our story. And I think, see, you and I can hear people like us who are spiritually connected to the source. Anyway, we can hear this and understand it on a level that other people perhaps cannot. And say, I was coming from a doctor's office in North Georgia, healing from my own trauma. My father's father brought here on a slave ship around 1848, and I got all that trauma in me that I'm healing, you know, through alternative means, because I avoid MDs as much as I can, because they just go slow poison you to death. So I was coming from a doctor, working on my trauma at this late stage of my life, because that trauma is in my DNA memory. And my parents, I was born on sharecropper's place, and my parents were sharecroppers. I know the story, and I'm willing to hear from when I finally got over being embarrassed, being an elder and a queen mother, and I got all this stuff going on. I'm supposed to be an educator, 40 years classroom educator. I'm supposed to have all the answers, and I didn't. So when I got over being embarrassed about that fact, I was able to go and start healing. And I used EMDR. There's several therapists. I could possibly be a resource for ways that I have healed the PTSD trauma and the ADD that's an attendant condition, and OCD and all that goes with that. I may be able to suggest some therapies that would help people to heal.
Absolutely, absolutely. What I'd like to do, normally in our productions, we open up the mic for the audience to participate. I want to ask one other person who is my technical director, Zulu King Frickson in Lugansk Republic, because I want to share with the audience here, and we've spoken about the trauma of our people. And on the news, on a daily basis, you hear about the situation with Russia and the Ukraine, and the possibility of war breaking out soon.
I've heard
if Russia invades Ukraine. Zulu King Frickson, please give us an update on what's happening there in your part of the world, in Eastern Europe, and what the indigenous people in Lugansk Republic are dealing with, some of the same type of issues that our people have been dealing with here. Open your mic, Frickson, and give us an update, please.
Okay, peace, everybody. The situation is same. The war is continuing in our region. We still, I'm living not so far from the border where the war goes on. Definitely, I'm living in the small town, Kirovsk town. It is on the border, on the front line, the border between Ukraine and the Lugansk People's Republic, the place where I live in now. It is the war battles continues, and you see in media today, not so alone, a few days ago, the USA media shows the propaganda video in the news where they said that Russia will be invade Ukraine in the 16th of February. But you know, all these talks every day we hear like Russia invade Ukraine, but we are here not a Russian colony. We are Russian-speak people from the beginning. When I was born, my father's and my mother's grandmother's grandfathers always was Russian-speak people. We are the native Aboriginal Russian people in Donbass area. Back in the days, it was east-south part of Ukraine, but in 2014, the Ukrainian government tried to stop us speak in our native language, in Russian language. The government of Ukraine make new laws that not we have no Russian speak teachers in the schools, so they stop make aggression politic about the Russian speak people in Ukraine. So today the Ukrainian government still continue make aggressive deeds against us. We are today not represent the Ukrainian people. We are the Lugansk People's Republic people population. We have own leaders, own laws, and I can speak from myself. When 2014 and 2015 was the main war battles in our town. So Ukrainian government don't help us, and Europe don't help us, and the USA government don't help us. They not bring to us medicals, not bring to us food, water. We still have water blockade. So the Kiev and the Ukrainian government blocked the water in the tubes. We like we living on the border, so we have one water tube between our regions. So the Ukrainian government try demoralize us. We continue under pressure with no water. Sometimes they blocked us from the tube, and of course people start to be aggressive about you understand, about our politics, because people need the water, and when you have no water, you can wash yourself, wash your clothes, you can have no water for the food, you have no clean water for drink, and this blockade from Ukraine, it was on the psychological level of our people, but we continue the struggle, and today our people continue living. So I repeat that I can speak for myself. I see in 2014 and till nowadays, like Russian government bring us the food, the many big cars, bring to our territory the medical equipment. They destroyed schools that was bombed. By the way, my school, where I was teaching in Lugansk city, was bombed by Ukrainian government from hot gunnery, and one woman was shot by the big bullets from the hot gunnery. So this school still not working because have many destructions, and on our territory we with help of Russia got also rights of the people of documents, because Ukrainian government blockade us on the political level. They not recognize us. Some people from our area went to Ukraine because we have relatives out there, our sisters, brothers, someone from us have grandmothers or fathers or families out here in Ukraine. So some people can't visit the relatives because the limits about the documents, about the passports, and they not recognize, they stop bank system with money in 2014. So we have no chance to get our money from our bank cards, because Ukrainian government block all this and said, come on, let's go to the so-called peace territory. But when you start travel, you have the problems with security police officers from Kiev that try to filtrate our population. They look at us like on terrorists, so-called rebels. So in media, you see that this is war between Russia and Ukraine. It's not true. It is civil war that start Kiev government in Ukraine in 2014 with own people in the east part of Ukraine. That was Ukraine before 2014, but in 2014 the government started civil war, and this civil war continued 8 years. For today, politics still from Kiev, politics still don't want to make dialogue with our leaders. They said, we will be speak only with the Putin, with Moscow, but we have our own leaders. We have own president of Lugansk People's Republic, that we have own laws, and our leaders can on the international level. In 2016, if I'm not mistaken, was written the so-called Minsk regulations, where the Europe, the Germany, the France, and Russia and Ukraine make the stamps, and all these countries agrees that must be peace, and Lugansk People's Republic will be independent. But Kiev and Ukrainian government still not make their promises, and still not doing this dialogue, and ignore this, and continue train soldiers. Now they start ready for the war, but I don't know why we see like Canada and Great Britain soldiers now visit Ukraine. They on the planes and on our region train Ukrainian soldiers fighting in civil regions. So it is a civil war that support European Union also, and United States government sent about 8 or 9 from this year airplanes with hot gunners, so-called javelins, NLAW rockets. So many, they sent many weapons.
So we
I
wanted to bring that information to you so that you, as our viewing audience, can get information from both sides. We're going to open up the floor because we're going to close out in a little while. The production had some technical difficulties today, and that is Zulu King Flixen, who's part of the Zulu Nation, as I am myself, the official high priest for the Zulu Nation. And we always open up the mic to our viewing audience, and then we'll give the guests an opportunity to close out. But if there's anybody in the audience that wants to make a quick comment, please feel free to open your mic before we close out. The floor is open. Anybody want to make a quick comment or ask a quick question before we close out? So I want to give the mic back to Nana Asare to have a few closing words, and then to Yaa Brayie, and then hand it back over to Dr. Qarlah Prince, so Flixen can get get ready to close us out with the music. Nana Asare, give us some closing remarks, please.
Yes. I just want to say thank you to the legacy builders. Thank you to you, brother Makakuvu. Thank you, Dr. Qarlah. This is the work. It's not glamorous, but we have to be available for our families, for our people. And I want to say thank you to the Queen Mother for her kind reminders and kind words about helping each other. We have to remember charity starts at home. The reparations that we need to be concerned about first is the reparations and repair that we do within ourselves and our communities. And let's keep supporting each other. Anything that you guys need cover on and support on, I want to be involved in to help. If any of you, the viewing audience, anybody watches this, you want to support Baba Inc. In the work that we're doing beyond the Bronx, you can follow us on our Instagram, which is bridging Africans and Black Americans. Actually, it's IG is at bridging Africans, Black Americans, with an S, no and. To follow us there. You can Google us and follow us on Facebook. You can follow my personal page on Instagram. It's at Harlem Ensemble. You can follow me on Facebook Nova Felder, NOVAFELDR. Just look me up. And if you would like to donate, you can donate to us at on Cash App at BABAORG. That's hashtag BABAORG. You can also find us on PayPal. I'll give you guys the link. It's the Ali Initiative and Baba Inc. That's with two orgs working together. And I just want to say, let's keep doing what we're doing. All we got is us. Let's keep this powerful energy going as an indigenous people on this planet. We are responsible for each other. Thank the technical director and for that insight to what he's going through and his people are going through there on the ground. The media is not covering that in that way. I'm glad to, I'm a political file, so it's good to hear what's really going on, and I'll do more research. But all in all, thank you. Humble servant of this universe. Let's just keep doing the work, and proud of you all. Thank you.
Nana, Queen Mother Nana Brayie, you want to have a few departing words, please? Thank you, Brother Nova.
I just want to thank you for inviting me to participate, because I'm all family. We had to be when I came along, or we wouldn't be here. And sometimes when we do this work, we may start feeling like we're alone and there's nobody listening, nobody helping. But I just want to assure us that even though we cannot see our ancestors in the physical, that they are always with us, because everything is energy. They are with us, and they are rooting for us, like, in the stands, in the bleachers of Beyond the Veil. They are in the bleachers rooting for you. They're proud of us for what we do, and when we listen and when we hear, that we are being blessed, whether we can recognize it immediately or not. So thank you for the work you're doing, and all of those who support you with the production of this program. And thank you for inviting me. I am now doing, from time to time, spiritual counseling as a result of my travel. Our greatest challenges in life often turn out to be the catalyst, as you know, for our greatest work. Because now we can hear how others feel when they have the same kinds of challenges. So we are inclined by our nature to then reach back and get someone to pull somebody else up. So if I can be a resource, or maybe counsel somebody who's in trouble, who needs a bit of encouragement, it's what I do, by trade, I guess they call it. I was a 40-year classroom educator, 12th grade and college students, and teachers don't ever really stop teaching. So, and I got re-educated through the ASCAC. You might know of Dr. John Henrik Clark and Dr. Asa Hilliard. Traveled the world educating myself so I could be a better teacher, elder, nana. So if you can use anything that I have to contribute to the family, I am a giver. And I give cheerfully and joyfully and willingly when I can. As I said, I'm still on part of my healing journey too. But thank you for including me in this awesome forum. You can get in touch with me if you find somebody who needs a word or a resource. After 50 years of suffering and struggling with my mental, emotional health, I now am able at least to tell somebody how I got this far along my journey to healing. So I'll be glad to share anything that you think I have. Thank you so much, and God bless you. Ancestors have got their hands over you, blessing you, saying, you go, guy. You got it. Thank you. Thank you all.
Dr. Qarlah Prince, our illustrious talk show host on healing from our trauma, the strength of a woman. Please take us out with a few words, and King Zulu King Friction will put the flyer up and do the music so we can close out.
Okay. Thank you so much, Queen Mother. Much respect. I appreciate you. I appreciate your survival. Thank you for sticking to it, hanging in there, and just saying I can when they said you can't. Thank you.
Yes. Thank
brother,
you.
Thank you for your work that you're doing. Please don't ever stop. And I just pray that others will come in your presence and pick up that energy and that spirit to come and help others that are in need as well. And so I'm very honored to just sit and listen and glean the wisdom. And like you said, what you've already gone through, you can tell me where that pothole is so I don't have to fall in it. And you can tell me how to get up and clean myself up. And so I appreciate that. And I will need you. I will be calling on you because we have so many men that are struggling. And you know what? Sometimes all they need is a mother's love, a mother's touch, a mother's word. And so again, I am so thankful this day to have sat and heard you and heard your heart this day. So all of the viewers and listeners, I hope that you have taken copious notes today. Great, rich information. The websites and the emails that was given today, as well as a way that you can support financially through Cash App. All of those things were given today, and I do hope that you have jotted those things down. Don't think a little bit won't matter. A little will go a long way. I promise you it will. Because for someone that's hungry, just a French fry, they'll be thankful. You have no idea. So whatever you can give to donate, please do it. Anything you have for these children, these families, coats, clothes, scarves, gloves, please don't hesitate. So with that said, thank you so much, and I look forward to being with you again.
Remark to you. World Media Coalition, Jazz Lovers Television Network, healing from our trauma, the strength of a woman. This was the inauguration production of Healing from Our Trauma with Dr. Qarlah Prince. Check us out, Friction.